Good evening, honourable members. The committee is resumed. Nō reira, tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa. It is Mr Williamson. Now, members, the House is in committee on the Social Housing Reform, Housing Restructuring and Tenancy Matters Amendment Bill. We're resumed, and before the dinner break, the Honourable Marianne Street was debating part 2, which is debate on clauses 17 to 24 and schedules 1 and 2. And the honourable member has 3 minutes and 35 seconds remaining, exactly as she told me.
Thank you very much, Mr Speaker.
You're welcome. I call the honourable member.
3 minutes and 35 seconds. Mr Chairman, before I was interrupted by the dinner hour, I was talking about a submission to the Social Services Select Committee on this bill by He Kāinga Oranga, based in the University of Otago. And they said that they didn't support the introduction of reviewable tenancies for all state tenants because of a number of things. And those things included a lack of evidence provided for its efficacy, its cost, the health effects on the lack of security of tenure, the health effects of displacement, the health effects of moving people from state to private rental housing, and the effect on children's education. Mr Chairman, these are not stupid people putting a submission together. These are people who are experienced in that whole matrix of health, housing, education and children's achievement and stability. And for the government to ignore this outright is a reflection on its own lack of ability. Either its own lack of ability to perceive the implications of the policy they're pursuing, or their stubbornness in refusing to address the people for whom social housing ought to be provided. Mr Chairman, I raised that because the next bit that these submitters say was that they recommended that families with school-aged children be excluded from reviewable tenancies, along with the groups they thought were already excluded: older people, people with disabilities and the chronically ill. Now, those people are excluded by policy only. When it comes to the black letter of this bill, they are not excluded. And I want the Minister to explain why they are not excluded. If it was good enough for it to be policy promulgated by the Honourable Phil Heatley in 2011, it is surely good enough to turn up in the legislation. And so, Mr Chairman, what I want to say about that is having those exclusions from reviewable tenancies, that is for older people, people with disabilities and the chronically ill, and families with school-aged children, having those exclusions in the bill, as my colleague Phil Twyford suggests in his SOP number 396, would go some way to alleviating some of our concerns. But it doesn't seem that there's any intention for the Minister to do that, or even to address why he's not doing it. Quite frankly, Minister, in the, if I might quote the title of Mark Preble's book, "With respect, this isn't good enough. This is not good enough. This does not protect the people who need protecting, the vast majority of those in our state housing stock who need assistance at this time." And so my colleague has put up an SOP that asks that tenants with a disability, tenants aged over 65 or 65 and over, or tenants with school-aged children be exempt. Why will that not happen?
I call the honourable member Moana